Introduce Paul Fenn.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. It's the local power team.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thanks for having me here. I'm Paul Fenn, CEO of Local Power, here with Howard Golub, Dixon Peabody, with Robert Freeling, who's Research Director of Local Power, and Joe Speaks of Booz Allen Hamilton, all members of the group that have prepared today's report. If I'm on the screen, I'm not sure how to activate the screen on this PowerPoint. Is there some device?
It's magic.
Great. I'm here presenting the Community Choice Aggregation Program Report today. The San Francisco, just to give a little background to our report, has now a 7-year history, even longer really, but since 2001 when voters adopted the original Proposition H Revenue Bond Authority for Renewable Energy, set in place a series of actions by the Board of Supervisors, led in part by SFLAFCO, and signed by the mayor to bring about adoption of a draft implementation plan a year ago last summer, and more recently an issuance of a request for information by the SFPUC, followed by Michael Bell Management Consulting's review of those RFI responses to this LAFCO, and most recently SFLAFCO retained us to prepare this report. Now, the purpose of this report is to outline and recommend a course of action for the CCA program relative to a number of ongoing energy developments that might be brought in to augment the program. As far as the definition of the program, most of it is provided for last year's Ordinance 44707, which adopted a draft implementation, CCA program design, and H-bond action plan. This confirmed the longstanding policy of requiring the new service to include the rollout of 360 megawatts of new renewable energy facilities and energy efficiency measures. That's a major project financed by the H-bond authority, which would add up to somewhere around $600 million in bonds issued, including interest would add up to just over $1 billion in terms of the value of the project. This is city-owned infrastructure, and so it should be understood as a city public works project. That's more or less the criterion of this program review, to look at the different categories of technology that are being developed or factors that might influence development of these technologies in the city. As far as the general sort of framework of the implementation plan, it requires a 51% renewable portfolio standard in San Francisco by 2017. That is within rates that compete with PG&E's rates. And this essentially introduces a kind of a turnkey structure within which the supplier has to both provide electricity service at competitive prices and roll out a significant fleet, really, of renewable energy facilities within that service. So what exactly does that mean? 360 megawatts is a lot of power. Distributed around the city, it will have significant impacts on the urban environment, the aesthetic environment. It will affect the way that people live. And so much of the nitty-gritty around implementing this program is getting a little screwed down around the subject of what technologies, where should they go, how quickly can they be rolled out, what are the issues, the technical barriers facing them. So we've engaged a multi-week process, a dialogue with the SFPUC. We submitted a list of, I think it was somewhere around 60 questions to them, and have received a great deal of data, and want to thank Barbara Hale and Sandra Rivetti and other staff at the PUC, as well as Cal Broomhead, Department of the Environment. We also interviewed a number of the city's top permitting officials and had a good deal of input from their side on the zoning and permitting environment for different categories of renewables, and helped us arrive at our conclusions. So before I get into the different categories and the major findings of the report, the first subject I want to give to you just all on one plate so you get a sense of where we arrived. We did arrive at some fairly significant conclusions as far as what the program could offer in the city. we concluded that if the Transbay cable, which is one of the big factors coming online affecting the CCA, if that cable does come online, which by all appearances it will come online, then we believe that the 360 megawatt rollout requirement will be adequate for the full closure of the Potrero and Morant plants in San Francisco without further infrastructure investment. However, realizing that the Board of Supervisors has directed the SFPUC to study a transmission-only option or a transmission-only solution to those plants, we believe that a new transmission line might augment the CCA program if it's designed to do so. One form of transmission line could simply serve to make the city more dependent on outside power sources than we already are. However, a properly designed transmission line could deliver regional wind power or other forms of renewable energy to the city from relatively nearby and could improve the overall energy independence of the city. So as far as that whole subject with the ISO, with reliability issues, we're recommending a course of action that we don't really need the line, we believe, in order to close those plants. But if the line is to be developed, it should be developed in a manner that augments new energy facilities to serve the city and not merely a transmission line to foreign sources of power. Second major finding, in some ways the most profound discovery, I think, of our research, is that we have developed a mechanism, a transaction mechanism, by which the CCA program, in our opinion, can legally make Hetch Hetchy power accessible to the CCA customers as a part of the CCA program. We'll go into some detail there. But it is a major finding because it has been presumed that the private sector is firewalled against this power. We've discovered that there really is no such firewall. It's a matter of structuring a transaction which enables the sale of power to occur under the Raker Act. And I'll get into the weeds on that shortly. Yes, sir.
It's a bit of a bold statement. The firewall that you're referring to is what? And then what do you think supplants that firewall that segues the power from public to private sector?
The specific, when I use the term firewall, it's really the tradition of a firewall.
Right.
We have the presumption of a firewall, which has governed the city's policy. It's a sensitive subject because there is litigation currently between the city and PG&E over its interconnect agreement, and the interconnect agreement has some bearing on transactions under the Raker Act. So there's moving targets involved here. But what we've developed really through the very high competence of Mr. Golub is a proposal for a transaction that would allow for power to cross the Raker Act criterion, to meet the Raker Act criterion, and allow power excess capacity from Hetch Hetchy to be sold to CCA customers. So I'll get into that. And I want to actually ask Mr. Golub to come up and answer questions because he could do it much more effectively than I can. Third major finding is that we came across through our research and with the help of
sorry, Commissioner Daley?
Excuse me.
Commissioner Schmelzer and Daley.
Sorry. Is that discovery that you discovered, is that what you're describing on what I have here as page 10? Page 10 and 11?
Yes.
Okay, so there's not a legal memo that accompanies this?
This is the whole draft report as it stands.
Okay.
Correct, yes. All right, so I'll just go on to the summary. We will return to that subject as a whole after I'll quickly go through the summary.